decisions. When this is, Mr. Speaker, creating a check and balance system itself. And therefore we say it increases the accountability of the people doing these actions. It increases the transparency of the government. Therefore itself, it's creating good for the world. Because why? The leaders are supposed to be accountable and the government is supposed to be transparent for the nation, for the people, like us here. Before that Speaker.
Whether it's a rumour or whether it's a check and balance system, WikiLeaks is deemed a threat by the world government all over the place. Are you saying threatening the world is a good thing?
Mr. Speaker, this is where they have misunderstood. They think just because it's called leak, it's negative. No, WikiLeaks is a form of exposure of truth. And how exposing the truth is going to be negative for the particular system, Mr. Speaker. Now done with the second point itself, moving on to the third substantive, under the key phrase of avenue for concentrated efforts in investigation. Now, Mr. Speaker, let's just see the example of how these WikiLeaks have actually 754,591 documents, data, figures, statistics. They're all on WikiLeaks, Mr. Speaker. They come from all over the world. Now, how is this going to be beneficial to concentrated efforts in investigation? Because why? These WikiLeaks have 5 international media partners. They have The Guardian in England, they have the New York Times in USA, they have El Pay in France. And Mr. Speaker, we say that in this sense, these WikiLeaks have actually contributed in the sense of investigative journalism. This journalist has to investigate on the truth of this information. They do not go on a blind stance on just publishing it, but they have to investigate on what's behind it. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this triggers inspection of the truth behind these documents. When the truth is actually being brought up to the public, brought up to the society, then this is considered good for the world because it improves the governance system, Mr. Speaker, and therefore itself, it's creating a justice altogether. Yes.
Now, if these leaks were about military tactics, and about how the United States faces the Taliban, how is this actually good for the world?
Okay. First of all, their 32-page document example wasn't even about military tactics. It was about the after effects of the war. It was how the Iran war logs are actually affecting the civilians over there. It shows how, not the military tactics, but how the civilians were killed, Mr. Speaker. And this is where we say their examples were actually like something of a cloud 9, not even existing. So, Mr. Speaker, we say that how this avenue will be good because it's going to expose justice. It's going to expose things that are supposed to be known to the people. So, Mr. Speaker, as the government for today, we've told you about how it's a check and balance in the governmental decision-making. It's going to be beneficial for the government and the public. And we told you it's an avenue for concentrated for investigations, Mr. Speaker. It's going to expose justice. And how by exposing the truth is not good for the world. And this is what they have to prove for the debate for today, Mr. Speaker. And we tell you that we totally stand on the motion for today, that this House believes that WikiLeaks is good for the world as it creates a better governance system. With that, we beg to propose proudly. Be prepared. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now let us invite the second speaker from the opposition, Abdullah Ikram bin Zulkifli.
Mr. Speaker, I don't care whether this deputy want to marry a guy or whatsoever, right? What I care is that what does this WikiLeaks brings towards the world? Because the fact, right, they never really prove to us why does this WikiLeaks really lead towards the benefits of the world. What are they talking about was just that the principal issues. They never really tell us what is the practicality of it, what is the cost benefit of WikiLeaks. And that's why we're going back with the trophy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to rebut firstly on second speaker's speech, right? Mr. Speaker, they were talking about accountable government. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't think that when you're too transparent in the first place, you're going to create accountable government, Mr. Speaker. Why? Because you're going to harm the society more. And nonetheless, right, you're going to create a government that always bow towards the society. This is when each and everything that society must know, even of 1 cent that were used by the government, also must be known to the society. We think that this is harm because of what? It will distort the policies of the government, the economical development of a particular government, Mr. Speaker. We think that it's harmful for the society, and that's why some informations were to be classified in the first place. And there were kind of like questions about this is an investigative journalism, right? Yes, we think that it is an investigative. But the thing is that how WikiLeaks sensationalized it, Mr. Speaker, creating how big fuss is the Sarah Palin's letters to Obama in the first place. Well, it's nothing. It creates misunderstanding in the United States society in the first place. Sorry, ma'am. We think that these things are harming the society, Mr. Speaker. Not just that. We also question about the problem within the diplomatic ties between US and also another country. How it will create a country that don't want to trust on US, and how it will distort the diplomatic ties between US and also another countries. And then the first speaker coming up here, right, he talked about WikiLeaks will create transparency. But they never really proved to us that the society right now are capable, credible enough to accept each and everything that the government want to tell them, Mr. Speaker. Because we think that right now, society, even though it's okay for them to know, we think that the misunderstanding still happen within the society in the first place, Mr. Speaker. We don't think that when it harms the society in the first place, it creates a misunderstandings and paranoia between the government and also the society is good for the society, Mr. Speaker. Before that, third speaker.
Who are you to say that a society is not ready to accept this kind of information? Who are you?
Mr. Speaker, we believe in the principle of governments, right? When you elect me as the government, I have the total right on towards you, Mr. Speaker, and that's what we uphold in this motion. Mr. Speaker, we believe that their cases never, ever gonna stand because the fact they never really tell us why is it it's bring benefit towards the society of the world, Mr. Speaker, especially the society that want to actually, that always misunderstood fact that were given by the government. Sorry, ma'am. Mr. Speaker, let's just go on to my first contentions, right? How it will, in somehow, undermine the diplomatic ties between a country. Mr. Speaker, diplomats say bad things about Saudi Arabia's kings, right, in US, Mr. Speaker. We think that they say that it's too idealistic. It's just a slip out of tongue from these diplomats, Mr. Speaker. But what does this WikiLeaks do? They kind of like create a big fuss, sensationalize it, making it how it is big, Mr. Speaker. And what happened between it is that there's Cold War between US itself and also Egypt. So what does this, the importance of this thing not to happen, right? First of all, we think that the diplomatic ties have two reasons. First of all, about the propagating the idea of human right. Secondly, we also think it's also about the regional stability in the first place, Mr. Speaker. So let's go on to the propagating of the idea of human, right? What happened in Saudi was that the diplomats started to make accidental remarks towards the government of Saudi, Mr. Speaker. It's just a minor situation. But the nature of this WikiLeaks is that they sensationalize it, Mr. Speaker. When you make big fuss of such stuff, you will create a rupture between a government ties, Mr. Speaker, and when rupture occurs, the propagations of democracy and upholding human rights that US trying to give Saudi in the first place will be distorted, Mr. Speaker. We think in the idea of liberalism and democracy, whereby we want the whole world to know what is democracy and uphold democracy, Mr. Speaker. This thing is not good for the world, Mr. Speaker. We don't think that we want Saudi Arabia to keep harming the human right in the first place. So let us go on to the regional stability in the first place, right? Mr. Speaker, we think that regional stability needs trust between countries in the first place, Mr. Speaker. So what happened, right? When you talk back about something, although it's accidentally, this WikiLeaks will leak these informations to the society. This will create not trusting another particular government, Mr. Speaker. So when this happens, right, it will create cold wars between you and also another country. So when this happens, Mr. Speaker, we believe that this Cold War also, in kind of way, distort the idea of trading between you and another country, Mr. Speaker, how it will harm your economy. When it harms the economy, right, this is when the society take the harms, Mr. Speaker, and this is when we don't think that it's good for the world in the first place. So let's go on to my second contentions, right, how it hampers the journalism credibility in the first place. Mr. Speaker, we don't think that journalism in the first place is to actually sensationalize everything out to the world, Mr. Speaker. We think that they should actually only give and tell whatever it is and should be, Mr. Speaker. The fact that WikiLeaks always tell like sensationalized things, Mr. Speaker, make a big fuss of a small matter. This is when the journalistic entity in somehow, Mr. Speaker, will spread and create a trend. They also want to be a sensationalized tabloid or whatnot, right? And this is when, Mr. Speaker, that everybody want to make big fuss of everything. And we think, Mr. Speaker, when this happened, right, such as New York Times, creating big deals about the Sarah Palin emails to Obama in the first place, Mr. Speaker, it destroys the informed choice of the people in the first place, Mr. Speaker. And we believe that informed choice is very important for you to actually know your government and whatnot, to choose your government, Mr. Speaker. Why is it it's kind of distort the informed choice in the first place, right? Because everything was sensationalized, Mr. Speaker. Everything was told like very things that doesn't need to be there in the first place, Mr. Speaker. So we think in the idea of sensationalism, Mr. Speaker, we don't think that it's a journalism in the first place. We think that a journalist or a journalist entity should only be a journalistic entity in the first place. So what I've talked to you about, first, I've talked to you about two things on how it will the propagating idea of humor wouldn't be there because of the rupture of diplomatic ties within a lot of countries. Second, I've told you that regional stability wouldn't be there because there's no more trust that happen between countries. And I've told you how it will hamper the journalism in the first place. And Mr. Speaker, we beg to oppose. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now for the third minister, whose duty is to shake the very foundation of the opposition case line, let us call forth Dahlia Munchar Elias. Welcome her.
Did you know that today is Stephen King's birthday? Well, I may not be that good in telling stories like him, nor am I good like the opposition in making up stories. What I will do for today is that I'll tell you the truth. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, that there are crimes, there are injustice, there are unethical behaviors done by certain parties, governments, bodies, Mr. Speaker. And this truth, Mr. Speaker, are hidden, are covered by these particular bodies who do not want the society to find out about it. So, Mr. Speaker, WikiLeaks is actually uncovering the truth. WikiLeaks is telling the society what is happening. So, Mr. Speaker, because of that and our 3 points, we believe that WikiLeaks is good for the world as it acts as a catalyst to a better government system. So, Mr. Speaker, my job for today is simple. I'll be rebutting the 3 points given by the opposition side, and I'll tell you why the government side wins today's debate. So let's just look at what we have brought up for today, Mr. Speaker. We've told you on how WikiLeaks is good for the world. As number 1, Mr. Speaker, we've told you on the roles of WikiLeaks. We've explained to you on the check and balance in decision-making. And we've talked about the avenue of concentrated investigation, Mr. Speaker. And we've told you why the society deserves to know their rights of information. I can't possibly understand why they want to question so early tonight. Mr. Speaker, let's just look at the case of the opposition. I'll be rebutting the 3 points starting from the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. Now, the 3rd point presented by Abdullah Ikram was on hampering journalism credibility. Mr. Speaker, he says that it destroys informed choice. He says that WikiLeaks does not allow society to choose their government, to choose, and how WikiLeaks is sensationalizing information. So let's look at the issue of sensationalizing information. Mr. Speaker, WikiLeaks is just revealing documents. WikiLeaks does not beg for people to look at it. WikiLeaks does not sensationalize these documents, Mr. Speaker. The ones who sensationalize these documents are the society, the readers. And the fact that these issues, these particular documents are being sensationalized shows that this issue has to be highlighted. The issue, that this issue is an actual problem. Now, yes, Bob.
It already proved that people still do not know the gravity of that particular sources.
Now, Mr. Speaker, this point actually makes me want to laugh. Why? Because he's saying that people like you and me, we can't think for ourselves. We can't think whether or not these issues are true. How come, Mr. Speaker, that we are not rational enough to decide on these issues, but we're rational enough to elect our government? We're suddenly rational enough to do other things, to drive and all this stuff, Mr. Speaker. But we cannot know what the government is doing? That's not fair to us, is it? Denied. And they're talking on the issue of how they want journalists to be the ones sensationalizing this information. Now, Mr. Speaker, we question, what's the difference between investigative journalism and WikiLeaks, Mr. Speaker? How come you believe what journalists say when they too hide their sources, they too do not tell where they get their information? And in fact, Mr. Speaker, WikiLeaks' difference from investigative, journalism is the fact that WikiLeaks only publishes documents. Investigative journalism publishes their personal opinions. And journalism, Mr. Speaker, are usually based on a particular body that they are reliant upon. Like, Mr. Speaker, New Straits Times, Mr. Speaker, their reliance was the government. You have Times, who are a democratic-based magazine, Mr. Speaker. Now, yes, third.
Even if it is investigative journalism, what will the society do even if they can get this information? What can they do?
Sir, the issue today is not what the society does after knowing this information. It's the fact that they want to know it and they deserve to know it. And why is it the opposition does not want to let the society know? They have not explained to us what harms will it cause the society, apart from the fact that the society might go irrational. They might suddenly go and rebel against the government, which is quite funny to me, denied. So let's move on to the second issue, on how it harms diplomatic ties. He was babbling on and on how, when, Mr. Speaker, when a certain country gives accidental remarks, this will actually cause problems between US and another government. So, Mr. Speaker, we see that why is it nations are unable to trust another nations? Because there are secrets. Because nations don't tell other nations what they want to do or what they have done. But with WikiLeaks, Mr. Speaker, when these hiddenness are actually uncovered, when these issues are transparent, Mr. Speaker, wouldn't nations be actually able to trust other nations, Mr. Speaker, when everyone is equally transparent, when there are no secrets, no skeletons in the closets? Right. So that's actually quite hilarious. So let's move on to the final issue, which is on national security. National security, it sounds very nice, actually. He was saying on how, number one, missions will be jeopardized. I have several responses to this. Mr. Speaker, honestly, I wonder if they've ever opened WikiLeaks at all. WikiLeaks does not uncover blueprints of buildings. WikiLeaks does not tell you what you plan to do in a war. There is no war planning inside WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks are reports. WikiLeaks are videos of what has happened. Now, yes, first.
If you concede, and you told us in your very speech that people doesn't need to take action and people cannot take action, then what good is your case actually bringing?
Sir, clap. Isn't it good if the society know what the government is doing? How can a society be part of a nation? How can a society be a civilian if you don't even know what your nation is doing? This is how the society actually deserves to know. They pay the taxes, they elect their government, but yet, Mr. Speaker, they don't know what their government does. I pay high, Mr. Speaker, but I don't know where does this money go to. Now, WikiLeaks is telling me that the money might be going to another channel because of corruption, maybe, because they're actually planning a war program. The society needs to know this information. We pay for them, we elect them, we support them, with the reasons why they're actually here, and we don't know what they're doing. How's that fair? So let's move on to the next issue on how you will tarnish the image of the military, the image of the soldiers, Mr. Speaker. We've already explained to you on how this image is already bad, Mr. Speaker. Nobody actually likes the army. People already think that the army are brutal, the army are cruel. But WikiLeaks providing facts, providing reports, Mr. Speaker, are actually telling us whether or not the rumors are true or whether or not the rumors are false. And we've also known that WikiLeaks also tells you whether or not how many terrorists you've killed, Mr. Speaker. So wouldn't these people become heroes in the eyes of people who actually support this acts, Mr. Speaker? So, to have WikiLeaks allows the society to decide whether or not these people should become hero or should not become hero. If they have committed crimes against humanity, if they have tortured civilians, do they deserve to become hero in the eyes of the society? We don't think so. And if the House doesn't think so, Mr. Speaker, we believe that the world will become a just world. So look at what I've explained in my speech, Mr. Speaker. I've rebutted all 3 points. So without the first point, which flew out of the window, the second point, which jumped off a cliff, and the third point, which sank into the sea, how can they stand? They do not. With that, Mr. Speaker, we beg to propose on the grounds that WikiLeaks is good for the world as it acts as a catalyst to a better government system. With that, be warned.
Thank you, Dahlia. Now that the government has had its say, let us call for the opposition whip to counter all points put forth by the government bench. Please welcome Muhammad Azizul Haziq bin Jalil.
My father has once said that if we were to leave a leaking pipe leaking forever, it will damage the household. If we were to let WikiLeaks to leak out information, it would be bad for the world, because secrets that were not meant for the society will be known, and this will create damage towards the government, this will create damage towards the world, and that is why WikiLeaks is bad for the world. But before that, Assalamualaikum to everyone. Today I, as the third speaker, am going to rebut on the government side, and it seems to me it's pretty easy to do so. Because starting from their stand, this is my rebuttals on the stand. Their stand was that we believe that WikiLeaks is good for the world because it's a catalyst for a better government. I ask of you this, my dear government. If you were to leak out information on your own, since you want a government's transparency, better governance, what will the society do? Will the society trust you even more? Or will the society distrust you? Because you see, secrets are meant to be secrets because it's not meant for everyone else. Because a government, when elected by the people, shows that the people trust the government. And whatever the government do, it's for the people. So if the government were to keep the secrets on their own, it's the responsibility of the government to make sure that the society live in a peaceful way and not letting them know the bad things that the government done is that. Yes, third speaker.
The government's responsibility towards the society, isn't that responsibility also count towards the society's right to know?
Sir, ma'am, I ask you, what if the society can know? What will the society do? You let straight out say that they cannot do anything. Is that they want to know, then they should know. Sir, ma'am, I want money from my parents. Do I get money from my parents? No. I need to justify why do I need the money. You need to justify why the people deserve the information. But you didn't. All you say is that when people know, this will create a better governance. That, ma'am, is a logical leap, and that is why they fall. So let me start with the first speaker on her key point, on her point, and the keyword of better governance. She straight out say that the government is there to serve the people. So I ask of you again, what if the people know the secrets of what the government do? If you were to say no, the people cannot do anything, it's just nothing coming from your case. But if you were to say yes, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that when we elect the government, we overpower the government, whatever we say goes? Are you saying that when we get information from any type of sources, when we know the truth, that we can be the government? No, sir. The government is the government because people elected it. People trust on it, and these secrets leaked out by the WikiLeaks destroy this trust between the government and the society. Whatever the WikiLeaks has leaked out only dampers the trust between the society and the government. That is why it's bad for the world. Sit down, ma'am. So, and then here comes another weird statement. People should know everything the government do. First, my response is, how? Are you going to create a press conference every day, telling the government's budget on that day, telling the government decision on that day? That's impossible, ma'am. The second, and then when you need to tell everything, there will be never a decisive decision. Because there will be always the society saying no to your decision, but you cannot say anything. Because what WikiLeaks leaks out is just one side of the story. there's always two sides of the story, and the government side is what you're supposed to trust because you're the society, you're the supporter towards the government. Yes.
How is it the government giving a society the choice to decide if the government is telling the society what to trust? WikiLeaks is giving cold, hard facts.
In the electoral process, we can elect the government. This is a choice that we were given by the government to choose the government. Let me ask you, what will people choose if each and every government in Malaysia, each and every political party leaks out its wrongdoings? There will be no government at all. There will be no governance to our country, and there will be a lack of governance in our country. WikiLeaks nothing but harm towards the world. That's like all of our 3 points. Sit down. So then here comes another weird statement saying that people can think about it themselves. Yes, that's true. People can think about it themselves. But if the news were over-sensationalized, when people exaggerate the news, for instance, the video collateral murder, the video actually depicts the US Army killed the Iraqi civilians with cold blood. But in the real sense, it was an accidental death. As one of my first speakers say, in war, everything goes because it's panic and disorder there, and you need to do what is to meet the end, and that is peace in Afghanistan land. Sit down. And then here comes another statement from her saying that if you don't give this, information towards the people, it will harm the people because there will be no trust between the society and the government. I ask you, really? How can the people elect a government if they do not know anything about the government? Should you know every secret about your friends? I ask you, no, because what stays private stays private. And then here comes this very big issue. Sit down under the saying that people in the Afghanistan where they harm civilians is bad. Sit down. Here's another statement for me. When there's war in Afghanistan land, when there's a drastic situation, you always need a drastic decision. That means if you were to pull the trigger, you need to aim to the bad guy, even if there's a civilian behind him. What you need to do is destroy this enemy and to get peace. And that is what the government knows. But why WikiLeaks leaks out is that this army are just killing people cold-blooded without no knowledge. Sir, there's an order in the military system where what you do is justified by the government. When WikiLeaks is there, each and every soldier in the Afghanistan land will have doubts on what he is shooting, on what he's supposed to do. And in the end, they will die. Sit down. So going on to the second speaker under the keyword of check and balance. I ask you, what kind of check and balance are you saying? There's always the society to determine what the government is doing. The society itself is a check and balance. But then again, if you were to leak out information by the WikiLeaks, there will always be distrust among society towards the government. Why? Because before this, when you elected the government, there was no secret at all. You were in an ignorant bliss. But when WikiLeaks leak out secret information, you will distrust your society, even though you yourself know that the government is you elected your own government. And that is why when WikiLeaks leak out information, there will be distrust among the society and the government, because the society will always think, what is the government going to do? So today, we the opposition, have bring you 3 points. First point under the keyword of national security. How WikiLeaks will disrupt national security is that people will not trust its army. Second point under the keyword of undermines diplomatic ties, where when WikiLeaks leak out secret information, we will destroy the diplomatic ties we are having with other countries, and this will lead to further chaos, and how we're going to diminish the true journalism factor in our country. For that, we love to oppose. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you, this is not a battle of sexes or genders. This is a battle of wits and arguments. Now, each team will be given 3 minutes to discuss